Tonight, Secretary Noem no longer. President Trump ousting perhaps the most divisive member of his cabinet, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who led his immigration enforcement crackdown. The president abruptly announcing her firing on social media, writing, "I thank Kristi for her service at Homeland," saying she had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border. Moments later, this awkward split screen.
Thank you for coming to this conference.
Noem on stage at a law enforcement conference, but never mentioning her firing. A top administration official tells NBC News President Trump already frustrated by a series of Noem's high-profile controversies. This week was infuriated by her testimony before lawmakers, where she was repeatedly pressed on her role securing a $220 million border security ad campaign that featured her prominently.
If you come here the right way, your American dream can be as big as these endless skies.
Correct.
Did the president know you were going to do this?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
Welcome, guys. Adam is here. So this is happening right now. This isn't normal political turbulence. It's a full-scale implosion in real time. People walking out, agencies grinding to a halt, basic government functions failing in ways that touch every American's daily life. The scenes coming out of Washington right now look less like a functioning government and more like a sinking ship where everyone who knows how to keep things running is racing for the lifeboats.
Breaking news in the ongoing firings in the Trump administration. President Donald Trump has abruptly fired General C.Q. Brown as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Brown is a former fighter pilot and respected officer. His 16 months on the job had been consumed with the war in Ukraine and the expanded conflict in the Middle East.
Breaking news. MS Now has just learned that FBI Director Kash Patel may be out of a job in the coming months. 3 people with knowledge of the situation say President Trump and his top aides have grown tired of Patel and the unflattering headlines he's been generating recently, including using a government jet to visit his girlfriend and enlisting a SWAT team as her security detail.
Cabinet officials are getting fired without warning. Senior appointees are handing in resignation letters that read like public condemnations of the president they used to serve. And underneath all of that, the machinery of government is seizing up because the people who know how to operate it are gone. Let me paint you a picture of what is actually happening. The Department of Homeland Security, which is supposed to be the backbone of national security and airport operations, has lost over 366 employees in a single wave.
Many travelers are suffering at the airport today as security wait times stretch longer than usual, in part due to a lack of staffing. TSA workers are calling out. They are under pressure from working without pay because of the month-long partial government shutdown. The Transportation Secretary says 300 TSA agents have actually quit. Union officials add that members just missed their second paycheck in the second government shutdown that they've had to endure in less than 6 months.
To be quite frank, officers are pissed off. And we're not just talking about here in Atlanta, we're talking about nationwide. The officers are pissed off. They want this to end. They're ready to get back to their some normalcy or some consistency within their lives. It's very different this time because of the close proximity to the previous shutdown, the 34-day shutdown. So the resources and things that were available, they're just not there anymore.
That is not attrition. That is an exodus. And those are not just administrative assistants. Those are TSA agents, the men and women who stand at airport checkpoints making sure you can get on your plane safely. Those are security personnel who handle the screening that keeps air travel functional, and they are leaving in such massive numbers that the entire airport system is starting to buckle. When you walk into an airport right now, you are not seeing the same operation you saw 6 months ago. You are seeing security lines stretching out the door. You are seeing passengers waiting for hours, missing flights, watching their travel plans evaporate because the people who are supposed to be running security simply are not there. TSA absences have doubled. That is not a minor staffing shortage. That is a systemic breakdown happening in real time. And here is what makes it even more infuriating. This is not happening because of some unavoidable crisis. It is happening because the administration has decided to use government funding as a bargaining chip to push immigration policies. The budget is being held hostage. People are not getting paid, so they stop showing up. And when they stop showing up, airports fall apart. That is the chain of cause and effect. and it is completely avoidable if someone in charge simply decided to fund the government like a normal functioning administration would, but that is not what is happening. Instead, we are watching a cascade of departures at the highest levels that makes the chaos even worse. The director of the National Counterterrorism Center, one of the most important national security positions in the entire government, just quit. His resignation letter did not sugarcoat it. He said he cannot support what the administration is doing with Iran policy. He said he cannot be part of it. So he walked away from one of the most sensitive jobs in the country because he believed the policy he was being asked to implement was wrong. Think about what that means. The person whose job is to coordinate counterterrorism efforts across the entire government, who briefs the president on terrorism threats, who has access to the most sensitive intelligence, decided that the moral and professional cost of staying was too high. And he said so publicly. That is not a quiet departure. That is a warning signal flashing in bright red letters. Then you have the Secretary of Homeland Security getting fired right before a major public event. Fired without warning, without the basic professional courtesy you would expect for someone in that position. And the message that sends to everyone else in the administration is clear. Loyalty matters more than competence. Agreement matters more than honest counsel. And if you ever find yourself in a position where you need to tell the president something he does not want to hear, you had better be prepared to lose your job. What happened next is predictable, but still shocking to watch. After that firing, 6 more senior officials walked out the door. Policy deputies, office directors, people with real operational authority all decided that they did not want to be part of an administration that treats people that way. They saw what happened to their colleague and they made a calculation: stay and become the next target, or leave while you still have your dignity intact. They chose to leave. Now let us zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this is not just about one department. The turnover rate among the president's senior team has hit 29%. That is the highest it has been since the Reagan era. 29% of the people who are supposed to be running the government are gone. And that number does not even include the thousands of other employees who have been fired through other initiatives aimed at cutting government staff. When you combine the resignations at the top with the firings throughout the middle and lower levels, you start to understand why the government is struggling to perform even basic functions. Consider the agencies that affect your daily life. Social Security, the program that millions of seniors and disabled Americans depend on to survive, is losing experienced staff faster than they can be replaced. The Department of Veterans Affairs, which is supposed to take care of the men and women who serve this country, is in disarray. The Internal Revenue Service, which handles the tax system that funds the entire government, is hemorrhaging people who understand how the system works. All of these agencies are struggling because the expertise that made them function is draining away. And what is filling that void? Nothing. Or worse, people who are loyal but have no idea how to actually run a government agency. When you fire everyone who knows how to do the job and replace them with people whose only qualification is personal loyalty, you do not get efficient government. You get chaos. You get delays. You get services that stop working. The Minneapolis shooting situation adds another layer of complexity to this mess. When something like that happens, when there are questions about what law enforcement did and whether procedures were followed, you need senior leadership in place to coordinate the response. You need people who understand how to work with local authorities and manage the political fallout. But those people are gone. They quit or they were fired. So instead of a coordinated response, you have confusion. Instead of clear communication, you have silence. And that vacuum allows the situation to spiral. This is what administrative collapse looks like. It is not a single dramatic moment. It is 1,000 small failures stacking on top of each other until the whole system starts to break. The airport lines get longer. The benefits checks get delayed. The response to crises gets slower. And each of those failures makes people more frustrated, which makes it harder to recruit the talented people you need to fix the problems, which makes the problems worse. It is a downward spiral that feeds on itself. The resignation letters themselves tell you something important about what is happening inside the administration. These are not people leaving because they got a better job offer or wanted to spend more time with their families. These are people leaving because they fundamentally disagree with the direction of the country. They are saying, in writing, that they cannot support the policies they are being asked to implement. The National Counterterrorism Center director was explicit about Iran. Others have been explicit about immigration policy, about budget strategy, about the way the administration treats career civil servants. They are not hiding their reasons. They want people to know why they are leaving. And that creates a problem for the administration because every resignation letter becomes a public document. Every departure becomes a headline. Every senior official who walks out the door is essentially testifying that something is wrong. And when you have dozens of those testimonies piling up, they start to form a narrative that is hard for even the most loyal supporters to ignore. The political consequences of all this are already starting to show. The impeachment argument that the administration is unfit to govern is looking less like partisan rhetoric and more like a statement of fact. When the government cannot keep airports running, when senior officials are quitting because they think the policies are wrong, when the turnover rate is the highest in 4 decades, the case for removal starts to write itself. Congress is paying attention. The evidence is mounting, and the public is starting to notice because they are living through the consequences. You go to the airport and you stand in line for 2 hours and you miss your flight and you are angry. You do not care about the budget negotiations or the immigration policy disputes. You care that the government is not working, and that frustration is going to find an outlet. It is going to show up in approval ratings. It is going to show up in election results. It is going to force politicians to take notice because voters are going to demand answers. The timing of all this makes it even more significant. With elections approaching, the chaos in Washington is becoming a central issue. People are watching their own lives get disrupted by government dysfunction, and they are going to vote accordingly. The party that is perceived as responsible for the breakdown is going to pay a price. And when you are the party in power and the government is falling apart under your watch, the price can be steep. Let us talk about what is driving this exodus because it is not just one thing. There is the policy dimension, where people cannot support what the administration is doing on Iran, on immigration, on budget strategy. There is the personal dimension, where the culture of fear and unpredictability makes people want to leave before they become the next target. There is the professional dimension, where competent people do not want to be associated with an administration that is seen as chaotic and dysfunctional. And there is the practical dimension, where people are not getting paid and cannot justify showing up to work when their families are not being taken care of. All of these factors are pushing in the same direction. They are pushing people out the door. And once that momentum builds, it becomes self-reinforcing. When people see their colleagues leaving, they start to wonder if they should leave too. When they see the administration treating senior officials with disrespect, they start to question whether their own loyalty will be rewarded. When they see policy decisions being made without regard for expert advice, they start to wonder why they bother giving that advice in the first place. The Department of Government Efficiency initiatives that have been cutting staff across federal agencies have only made things worse. Thousands of employees have been let go in the name of streamlining government. But what you actually get when you cut that many people without a plan is not efficiency. It is paralysis. The people who are left do not have the support they need. The institutional knowledge that took decades to build disappears overnight. And the agencies that were already struggling under the weight of senior departures find themselves even more depleted. Look at what is happening with air travel specifically because it is the most visible symptom of the larger disease. When TSA absences double, the screening process breaks down. When the screening process breaks down, lines get longer. When lines get longer, people miss flights. When people miss flights, airlines have to cancel and delay more flights. When flights get delayed, the whole system starts to cascade. And that is exactly what we are seeing. Airport after airport reporting hour-long waits, flight after flight getting pushed back. travelers stuck in terminals wondering how the country got to this point, and the people who could fix this, the senior leadership at DHS who understand how to manage the system, who have relationships with airport directors and airline executives and labor unions, are gone. They were fired or they quit. So there is nobody at the wheel. There is nobody making the calls that would get the system moving again. There is just a vacuum where leadership used to be. The same dynamic is playing out across the government. At Social Security, the people who know how to process benefits claims are leaving faster than they can be replaced. So checks are late, applications are backlogged. Seniors who need that money to pay for food and medicine are waiting. At the VA, the people who know how to navigate the complex system of veteran healthcare are disappearing. So veterans who served this country are waiting months for appointments. At the IRS, the people who know how to process tax returns and answer taxpayer questions are gone. So refunds are delayed and nobody is picking up the phone. This is not abstract. This is not something that only affects people in Washington. This is affecting your neighbors. This is affecting your family. This is affecting you if you have ever flown on a plane, if you depend on Social Security, if you are a veteran, if you file taxes. The breakdown is touching every corner of American life, and the question now is where it goes from here. Will more people leave? Almost certainly. The wave of departures is not going to stop on its own. Every resignation makes the next resignation more likely. Every firing makes the next person start updating their resume. The people who are left are going to be under more pressure, which is going to make them more likely to leave. And the administration is going to find it harder and harder to recruit replacements, because who wants to join a government that is falling apart? Will the airports get worse? Probably. As more TSA agents leave, the staffing shortages are going to get more severe. The lines are going to get longer. The delays are going to become more frequent. And at some point, the system might reach a breaking point where travel becomes impossible for large numbers of people. That is not alarmism. That is just math. You cannot lose that many people in a system that was already operating with thin margins and expect it to keep functioning. Will Congress take action? That is the big question. The evidence is mounting. The case for impeachment is getting stronger with every resignation, with every hour-long security line, with every delayed benefit check. The question is whether the political will exists to act on that evidence. The public is starting to feel the consequences. The frustration is building. And when frustration reaches a certain level, politicians start to pay attention. The next few weeks are going to be critical. We are going to see whether the wave of resignations accelerates or stabilizes. We are going to see whether the airports can stay functional or whether the system starts to break down further. We are going to see whether Congress decides that the chaos has crossed a line or whether they continue to stand by. And we are going to see whether the public's patience with government dysfunction reaches its limit. Here is the bottom line. What we are watching is not normal political turmoil. It is a government losing its ability to function. It is senior officials walking away because they cannot support what they are being asked to do. It is agencies shedding the expertise they need to operate. It is basic services starting to fail. And all of it is happening in real time, with consequences that are landing on the lives of ordinary Americans. The people who could fix this are gone. The systems that could keep things running are breaking down. And the chaos that started at the top is working its way down to the airport terminals and the Social Security offices and the VA hospitals that millions of people depend on every single day. This is what administrative collapse looks like. And we are watching it unfold right now. So the question is not whether something is wrong. Something is clearly, obviously wrong. The question is what happens when the public realizes just how deep the dysfunction goes. What happens when the frustrations that are building in those airport lines and those waiting rooms translate into political action? What happens when the people who walked away decide to start talking about what they saw? We are at a moment where the answers to those questions are going to start revealing themselves, and whatever comes next, it is going to shape the government for years to come.